I know a lot of people don't like lawyers or they don't like politics, but there's a really interesting story of both going on right now. President Trump is putting certain law firms on notice. Since January, Trump has signed more than 100 executive orders, and in some of those orders, Trump is targeting law firms directly tied to prosecutors involved in cases that have been against him, including, yes, those cases stemming from the 2016 election interference investigation. Other executive orders are related to Trump's stance on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, in this case at the law firms, are related. Some of those firms, though, now are fighting back. They are suing others, and they're in discussions with the Trump administration, in at least one case, potentially we hear, to cut a deal. So what's going on here? For more on these executive orders, their effect, and the response, let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Caroline, for some people, Trump v. law firms is like crocodile versus alligator. It's just like an epic battle between two things that you don't particularly like, but it could be consequential.
Absolutely. He's issued 5 executive orders against these so-called big law white shoe firms, some of the best lawyers in the country, most of them D.C. based. And essentially, he's exhibiting a personal vendetta against these firms, as you said, for hiring people that he perceives to be against him. Now, the first one against Perkins Coie sent shockwaves through the legal community, not only for what it did, which was revoke the security clearances of members of the firm, and in some cases even essentially barring them from entering federal buildings, so they can't do their jobs. And so it's really an existential threat to these firms, the most recent of which yesterday against Wilmer Hale, they employed lawyers with connections to Robert Mueller, as you alluded to. Lawyers are getting worried that their clients, they won't be able to adequately represent their clients. These firms are huge. Their bread and butter does come from traditionally, Fortune 500 companies. Most likely, all of those companies have some interaction with the government. So they're getting nervous that they may flee. And you're seeing a range of ways to, go about seeing how they're going to combat these orders, whether or not they're going to cut deals or fight them.
Caroline, you used to work for one of these firms that's been targeted. What are people saying? And also, how unusual is it for the president to go after a private entity through an executive order? Yeah,
it's totally unprecedented. It's totally weird. People don't know what to do. I used to work at Paul Weiss, which is the firm actually that's getting a lot of flack. They cut a deal for the order to be rescinded. Brad Karp, who's the chairman of that firm, he agreed with Trump for the firm to commit to $40 million in pro bono work for organizations and causes that the Trump administration touts, like Veterans Affairs, other anti-Semitic work to combat anti-Semitism. But these firms traditionally have done pro bono work for things like immigration rights, asylum seekers, reproductive rights. So those things are going to go away. And a lot of these nonprofit organizations really rely on that type of funding from these firms.
You think law firms are not going to take up those pro bono cases anymore to survive?
Absolutely. They're going to be afraid to represent anybody that goes up against Trump for fear of, losing their clients. These are businesses first and foremost, right? And so you're seeing a difference in, are you going to stand up for the rule of law? I mean, Perkins Coie, there's already been a decision issued, a temporary restraining order on some of these actions, saying that these orders violate the First Amendment, they violate the Sixth Amendment, your right to an attorney, and they potentially violate due process rights.
When you watch a law procedural on TV and it's a white shoe law firm, they always have these cool navy bags with the name of the firm on the bag.
Yeah, I got some.
Why do they? You have that? Why do they all give those bags?
They do those in finance too.
Really? It's always those bags.
I don't know. It's a thing. That's why people hate lawyers, right? It's like a thing, and you're in the skyscraper building against Picasso's, and then the glossy stuff. They tout their pro bono work, but like Paul Weiss, for example, at the end of the day, Paul Weiss did $2.6 billion in revenue last year. Their corporate clients are their bread and butter. They want to keep representing those clients.
And like you said, it's a business first. Caroline Polisi, thank you so much.